With charts, you can graphically see your data and can easily see trends within your data. Now in a pivot table, you can insert pivot charts. Now this is a visual way to see your pivot table data. A pivot chart is an extension of your pivot table. So as you're making changes to your pivot table, then your chart also gets changed. So let's insert a pivot chart. Well, first we have to click in our pivot table, and in our pivot table tools tab in our ribbon, we choose the options, and on the right hand side under tools we have pivot chart, and then we choose there. Now we get our insert chart dialog box, and we have the different charts on the left. Now let's insert a simple column chart and press OK. So now we have our chart in here. Now note that the x-axis has the sales region. So all the row labels are always in the x-axis. And in the y-axis, we have our years and our values. If we want to move around the sales regions to the column labels, we can do that, and you'll see that our pivot chart will also change. So let's get the sales region from the row labels to the column labels, and then the financial year down to the row labels. As you can see now, in the x-axis we have our financial year, and on the y-axis we are showing our regions. Now you'll also note that when you're using a pivot chart, that the names change here. So instead of row labels, we have access fields, categories. Instead of column labels, we have legend fields, series. Another thing that you will notice is that we get our filters in our pivot chart. So we can actually filter from in here. So we can choose the financial year just to include 2 years, and that gets changed, as well as our pivot table. So they're both connected. So this pivot chart is an extension of the pivot table. Now we can make the changes from the pivot table and select all, and the pivot chart gets changed as well. Sales regions, we can just choose one. This gets amended, and so does our pivot table. We can also go back to our pivot table and make the changes there. Now these report filters within our chart takes up space, so I like to get rid of them. Now just hover over one of the report filters and right click, and then choose the hide all field buttons on chart. So now we're just showing our chart. Now we can use our pivot table to control the filters and change our chart. Go back and select all. So these pivot charts give us the power to visually see our data within our pivot table.